It's perfectly acceptable to kind of flip over to if you want to do for benchmark data to rate yourself on like data. Absolutely fine to do that. I'm actually more of a skeptic. IQ is about to be nominated, is about to be endorsed by the American Hospital Association, and honestly, one of the things I'm going to start talking about is, guys, you have to get better at your data set, because a lot of times the benchmark data is so varied. Basically, it's all of us that started laughing that we track everything on Excel. It's all of us that are giving them that data, right? So, like, I think after a while, it all kind of evens out to be okay, which is why to report like that. So I'm not kind of bashing that as an overall industry standard. You shouldn't try it. But when we want to begin to look at the reality, that's when I begin to look at median. So it might be you might actually want to report both in those cases, because if your executives are saying how are we doing against our industry, we kind of put both statistics on there to say, and look, when I want to analyze what's going on, here's what I'm doing. And here too. But it's great. I'm always like, you can't put me in your competitive data, because I'm always ripping through and going, again, and you just kind of circle the stuff that's wrong. All right, so I want to talk for a moment about trust, and this is my trustworthy HR guy. There are times that that we have all good intentions of running the right data. We've done it for a long period of time, and we're trying to be thorough in what we're doing. Yet, managers are not using the information. So here's a quote that I thought was kind of poignant for HR, because I think we are under this spell, which is, if the consumer of the data, the decision maker, doesn't trust me, then nothing's going to happen. That's back to Shannon's point from an hour and a half ago, right? We're social animals. We're animals that believe in stories and in people. So if they don't think that we are capable, that we don't have good processes, they don't look at our information. They ignore us. And that's scary. Okay? Now, I'm not saying they're not wrong in being skeptical, right? There's one reason. How many of us have negative time to fill sometimes, and are somehow, like, we went back in time, and the IT representative was actually hired a month and a half ago, and that's shown in the time to fill like that. Sometimes our data sets are not pretty, and we need to look at them and to fix them. There is the comment from recruiters, oh, I'm sorry, I meant to put that in last week. I know you just gave that to the CEO and everything, but that's okay, right? I'll get it in tomorrow. Or how about, if I put that in the system, then you'll judge me on it. These are all concerns. These are process problems. This is my favorite one. What's my login again? We did this at IRM with Susan was there too, and that got the biggest laugh, because that's everyone that operates the HRIS systems going, yeah, they're asking me, right? Okay. So why has trust eroded in here as well? It turns out that there are really only 4 reasons, and if you correct some of these 4 reasons, life works out a lot better. The first is that a lot of times our reports don't arrive at the same time every time we send them. And you'd think that's kind of little and silly, but it's really not. Because people think that processes are, just by their very nature, if a good process is in place, then at 9 o'clock on Monday, that report appears. And it just kind of appears from magic, right? It gets into my email box. One of the things that I always encourage is, if you're running this in a manual process, it doesn't matter how you schedule your stuff, no matter what, make sure that email goes out exactly at 9 o'clock on Mondays. Get it prepped, put it up on Sunday, and just wait until 9 o'clock on Monday and hit it. Whatever it takes, get your data to arrive consistently. A lot of times, they don't have faith that we understand how to manage our systems. And they don't really get into details about what systems we're talking about. They just think that we're the people. So people shouldn't, don't know how to manage systems. They're not like operations, right? SAP, awesome, flawless. For those of you who run SAP, not flawless in its well, but that's okay. They're judging us. Many times there is no clear method. If I can't see how you've calculated something, I don't believe you. I don't get what your assumptions are. I don't know how you calculated whatever it is you just said was awesome. Yeah, I don't believe it. Sorry. And here's the hardest one, by the way, and this is more of a relationship than anything else. My data does not match your gut feeling, right? So, well, this can't be right because I know that my turnover isn't like that. Trying to change someone's, I actually did this in that article, right? It was, I think I said, go ask your managers how many times they've made a career-altering decision based on a set of data, and then ask them how many times have you made a career-altering decision based on an article you read in the Wall Street Journal. It's the Journal almost every time. People are not wired by nature to trust data to make decisions on there. You actually have to convince them. That it's not kind of fun because we're trying to sell them on here. You can make an action, but I'm not going to trust your data for it. This is hard, and it's hard to overcome, but it is achievable. But not something that happens tomorrow. So there are some steps to help you kind of remedy some of these things. One is have a defined process and post it up someplace. Be more transparent on how the operation works. Secondly, spot checking the data and letting people know that you spot check data is incredibly helpful. Now, many times I will take a set of information, time to fill, voluntary turn. I'll just throw the details into a spreadsheet and sort it. I'll just see if there's anything that looks silly. Like, what data dirtiness do we have? And so at least we can quantify what that's going to look like. Okay? Running the reports on time, which we discussed. As long as we make them relevant from our mistakes from a few minutes ago, relevant information is trusted more than irrelevant information. And if you give somebody 10 relevant statistics and 1 irrelevant statistic, if they're not your friend, you just got disqualified. Because they're looking for the reason why you don't get us, right? You don't understand my business because, fine, well, those 10 were good, but I don't need that one in there. So, there's always, the relevance has great help in there. Also, meeting with them. Hey, that's an idea, right? We're people. Go meet with them. Sit them down, ask them some questions about how it actually looks. Okay. This is the final part of what we're going to talk about today, which is I'm going to suggest a way that you can generically take any goal, any metric that you want to try to report on and make it look more process-driven and more systematic. Okay? Takes you through about 5 steps, which is there's nothing really that new about the 5 steps. How do we set goals? How do we then model the measurements for that goal? How do we build the metric? How do we then validate the metric? And something at the final end, which is what is the proper care and maintenance for your data? There's no real good books on caring for your data like there is for caring for your puppy, right? But they both need it. They both need that love and support. In setting goals, one of the things that I've found very useful, and I think a lot of our clients have found useful, is sitting down with your constituents and building a grid of, okay, what's the goal? What do we want to try to change? Remember, this is outcome-based reporting. How do we change this? And describe what we're trying to do. So if the goal is to reduce time to fill by 15%, well, what is this here? We're currently at 42 days. We want to move down to 36, but for engineering, we're going to be at 40. You actually are, essentially, in writing this down, you're building a contract with them. Here is the level of performance that we expect amongst all of us. And then mark down who cares about it with an X. In this case, the hiring managers care about it. That way you know what you're going to give them when you actually start running reports for them in here too. It's amazing, just simple grids. If you can use Excel for anything, use it for this. This is good for Excel. Okay? For each report that you want to write, give yourself a sheet. It could be a notebook, it doesn't matter. Give yourself a sheet that describes what this thing is supposed to do. Here's the objective. Here's what we're going to call it. Here's that goal again. What's my formula? Where am I going to get the data? And who's responsible for it? Who will be responsible for taking this puppy out for a walk and feeding it and so forth? Make someone responsible for a metric and let them own it. Could be anyone on the team. It does not have to be one metrics guru sort of person in here.